Hi everyone, welcome to a bonus content video. Today we're going to be showing you how to look up ETFs on Yahoo Finance and Morningstar. So I get a lot of people that are going through this process and they want to be able to dive deeper into the ETFs that they're thinking about buying. So really this video is for people that do want a bit of a deeper dive in understanding kind of how we can open up an ETF and look at what's inside and really understand what's in there. So I like using Yahoo Finance. This is kind of my first go-to resource. What we'll do is we'll look up the ticker symbol. So in this case, I'll do VEQT.TO. So this is sort of our case study for a non-sustainable ETF, the Vanguard All Equity ETF portfolio. Now notice there is this sort of .to suffix here that if you are looking up ETFs here, if they're traded in the Canadian stock market, they are going to have that .to suffix. So that's pretty normal for Yahoo. From there, it's really annoying. I've noticed that everything is sort of not available. All the Canadian dollar ones today, for whatever reason, it's just not available. So here, let me do a US dollar one. This is the Vanguard Total World Stock Index Fund. This would again be sort of like a doing less evil ETF, but this is in US dollars. So it's just nice to be able to get the real data here. So the net assets, this is how much money people have invested in this fund. This one has more than $30 billion in it. You can see it's just huge. NAV, this is the net asset value. So this is probably, looking at the value of all the different companies that are inside, right? And that, if you were to add up all of those values, you would get to $104, which is always going to be right around where the share price is, but it might not be exactly that number. PE ratio, this is a valuation metric. So this is price to earnings ratio. You can see it's not available here, not a big deal. I wouldn't worry too much about this for these broad-based ETFs. This is more when we're investing in individual companies. It's a measure for whether something is cheap or expensive, how the market is valuing the price versus the earnings or the profitabilities. When it comes to ETFs, I just really wouldn't worry about this too much. The yield is the dividend. So this is like the dividend yield. This is an annual number. I would expect this ETF to earn about 1.65% annually. YTD, daily total return. So this is year to date. So this is since January 1st. So had I bought shares of the Vanguard Total Stock, Total World Stock Index Fund ETF, had I bought shares on January 1st, I'd be up about 13% on the year. Hey, not too shabby. Beta, this is a measure of risk. So this is a measure of volatility. Most of these ETFs, I would expect to have a beta right around 1. That if it's a beta of 1, that this means that it is as volatile as the broad market, which obviously this one is the broad market, so it should be as volatile. If the beta is greater than 1, like if it's like 1.1 or 1.2, that means that it's going to be more volatile than the benchmark. So if the stock market goes up by 1%, I would expect that one to go up by 1.1 or 1.2. If the stock market falls by 1%, I would expect it to fall by 1.1 or 1.2. As well, if this if the beta is less than 1, that means it's actually a little bit less risky or less volatile than the broader market. Expense ratio net, this is code word for annual fee, so you can see this one is nice and cheap. And then inception date, this one has been around since 2008, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go back to VEQT just because I want to stay in the Canadian market for the rest of it. But you can see, it's nice to be able to understand what all those different things are. Really what I use Yahoo for is the chart. That I just love the chart. That you can see here, basically I want to go back, let's say 5 years. Now VEQT hasn't been around that long. It's only been around since it looks like sort of February of 2019. So, let's leave this here. But what this allows me to do is to be able to really easily add comparisons. Now, before I do the comparisons, just want to show you that this is the change in share price. So I could have bought a share at $25.29 way back when it launched. You can see the market did well, and then until the COVID crash. So this would have been sort of, February 9th, 2020, we can see the COVID crash. And then the recovery took a little while to get back up, not too long. And then it really has done well since then, post-COVID. As well, notice here that there are dividends. So it looks like this one pays a dividend I think it's every year. It looks like this one is December and then December. Yeah, so this one pays dividend about 46 cents per year. From there, again, what I love about this tool is the ability to compare. So if I want to show you some of the like doing less evil, like I can do geqt.to. This would be like the equivalent sort of doing less evil one from iShares. I can make it whatever color I want. Why don't I make this one purple just so that you can see it? Now, notice that GEQT, it hasn't been around as long. It only started in 2020, so the line sort of only starts there. But you can really see that the two lines do track quite closely. And the purple one, GEQT, is a little bit ahead of the non-sustainable one over this fairly short time period since it launched in, it looks like August of 2020. So really cool feature here. If I want to be able to chart different ETFs, I can show you one that's been around for a little bit longer. So if I do like ETHI, this one has been around. This is sort of the crunchy granola ETF. Why don't I make this one, I'll make this one pink so that it really sticks out here. You can see this one has actually done really quite well. Let me just go back to the long-term chart. So you can see this one has outperformed. It doesn't mean it'll always outperform, right? But over the last little while, it has. And it's just really nice to be able to see that, the sustainable ones have done, about the same in the case of GEQT, and then ETHI has actually done a fair bit better over the last little while. So really useful tool here to be able to look at things, and especially when it comes to charting tools. The next tool I'm going to show you is Morningstar. So this one's a little bit more in the weeds, but honestly, I love this. For the nerds in the audience, you're going to love Morningstar. So again, what we can do is look up VEQT. Now, there are going to be kind of a whole bunch of different things often that pop up here. We want to look under ETFs, so VEQT right here. From there, again, we get lots of great information here. We get the 12-month yield. This is the dividend, expected dividend, about 1.32%. We've got the total assets, $1.3 billion. So again, a very, very popular ETF. And MER here, 0.24%. And that really, when it comes to Morningstar, what I love doing is looking at the portfolio, because there's a lot of really cool information in here. First thing I can do is I can look at the asset allocation, right? So in this case, there's no bonds, but if there were bonds, if this was like VBAL or VGROW, which are a mix of stocks and bonds, then we would have some fixed income in here. But this one is just 100% stocks. I can see the breakdown between Canada, US, and the rest of the world. So this one is pretty heavy when it comes to Canada. From there, this chart is pretty cool. This shows us sort of a little map here. And this is going to be a mix between value stocks versus growth stocks, or these are going to be in the middle here. We're going to have balanced, right? Growth stocks are more likely tech stocks. They're really, the goal is to buy low, sell high, that, grow, grow, grow. They're trying to take over the world. Value stocks are going to pay a higher dividend. So these might be like bank stocks or, mining companies or pipelines, where you're not really trying to buy low, sell high. Instead, there's a lot of value there. You're trying to earn dividends from those. And then a blend, I think this is blend actually, that, that's going to be somewhere sort of in the middle. As well, we have the mix of large cap, medium cap, and small cap. So this is the size of the company. So I can see that when it comes to VEQT, that really we are looking at mostly large and kind of in the middle between value and growth, these sort of blended. I like this weight button because it gives me numbers. So I can see there's a little bit of small cap, small companies in here, but, pretty tiny. Most of them are going to be large cap. There is a mix of sort of growth stocks, value stocks, but, most of them are sort of in the middle, which is exactly what I would expect here. From there, we can look at different factors. So this is like super in the weeds, but there are different factors that you can look at. So we can look at the style, again, between sort of like growth and value. The way to read this is that VEQT, the ETF we're looking at, is the blue circle, right? The light blue circle is sort of the 5-year historical range. So they do move up and down. And then the black line and dot is the category average. So I can see here, that VEQT does have a little bit more of a tilt towards value compared to the average, right? And the category is other global equity ETFs. So it might be that, there's a little bit more exposure to Canada in this one because it does have a home bias. So that's why, a little bit more exposure to things like banks and mining companies and pipelines. In terms of yield, this is going to be the dividend, a high dividend versus low dividend. Momentum, so this is going to be in terms of the recent direction of the stocks and how that's doing. Quality is kind of a measurement of the company's quality in terms of the quality of their balance sheet. Volatility is kind of up and down, and that the range when things go up and down and the market sort of rides that roller coaster. How severe is that roller coaster? A little bit higher than the category average, not the end of the world, but it can be nice to know these things. Liquidity and size are the other factors, so that can be kind of useful information if you want to be able to look that up. Where I spend most of my time is actually looking at the exposure here. So really when we look at the sectors, we can do, and again, the fund compared to the category average. So because this one is heavier in Canada, higher percentage in financial services compared to the average. Not a big deal there, but no surprise. As well, pretty high exposure to energy compared to the category average. No surprise there. Again, Canada, the Canadian stock market, a lot of banks, a lot of energy companies and pipelines, and also a lot of basic materials, mining. So I'm not surprised that all three of these are a little bit heavier in this one compared to the other global equity funds. But can be really useful to go through these different sectors just to know the breakdown that you're getting. We can also split it up by region. So this actually lumps together Canada and the US and Mexico into North America. And then, you can do it sort of by different region here. If we want the deep dive, we can look at it country by country. So again, you can see here Canada, 29%, basically 30% exposure to Canada compared to the category average, which is only about 5.5%. So this one does have a home bias. It is a little bit heavier in Canada. Not a big deal, but it's really nice to be able to look inside and really understand what's inside of this ETF. Now, this ETF is what we call an all-in-one ETF. So this is an ETF of ETFs. So when we look at the holdings, right, you can see here that really it's got the Vanguard US Total Market ETF, right, and then a Vanguard Canadian one, and then this would be Developed ex North America, and then Emerging Markets. So really this is going to be sort of the different global funds. Vanguard has just kind of put them all together in a nice wrapper for us. Now, the only thing here is that, unfortunately, we'll only ever get the top 10 holdings. If you do want the full list of holdings inside an ETF, unfortunately, we can't really get that from, Yahoo Finance or Morningstar. That's something we're going to have to look to the ETF itself for. So in this case for VEQT, I'm just going to Google VEQT space ETF. It's going to be vanguard.ca. I do want the ETF provider website. I don't want any of the research companies. This is a Vanguard ETF. I want to go to vanguard.ca. It's going to be in here somewhere. It's usually towards the bottom. Let me just scroll down a bunch. They'll have a lot of the same information here as Morningstar and Yahoo. The only problem is that it's not consistent. I can't really compare them. So that's why I like using Yahoo and Morningstar, just because it's so gosh darn consistent when I look up different ETFs. Okay, here we get the holding details. So I had to scroll down quite a bit, but I do get the list of holdings. Right, you can see here Shopify, the biggest company in the weighting, and then Apple, and then RBC, right, Amazon, Enbridge. But it's only the top 10 holdings. I actually want all of them, so I'm going to download the Excel spreadsheet. And you can see here I'm downloading all 12,970 companies. This is pretty massive. I'm going to download it in Excel. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here so that we can see here. So again, the top companies are going to be the top companies. The Canadian ones really do feature prominently because this ETF does sort of have that home bias, right? So it's going to have there, but we can scroll down and we can legitimately see all 17,000 companies in here. It's kind of ridiculous. Obviously, this is the most diversified. This is a non-sustainable ETF. So when I look up ExxonMobil, it's going to be in here, or Lockheed Martin, right? It's going to be in here. Something like Philip Morris Tobacco, it's going to be in here. So that's actually Phillips. Hold on. But there it is, Philip Morris. So, it's the type of thing where downloading the full list of holdings makes it really easy to use these search features that if there are any companies you really don't want to own, to see whether they are inside this ETF or not. So hopefully that was useful. These are sort of the tools that I love using, are sort of Yahoo Finance and Morningstar. Hopefully this gives you a feel for how to use them. Obviously, if you have questions, you can always post them in the community forum. Happy to help you sort of navigate this, or if you notice something's a little bit weird, a little bit off, I can help get to the bottom of it. But this is should give you a really good overview in terms of how to look up ETFs on these different research sites.